This is my true story, African Tales Queen. I'm sending it to you anonymously because I'm in a dilemma. The harmattan wind carried dust through the narrow streets of Kano, coating everything in a fine reddish powder. I was in the kitchen preparing masa and tomato stew when my husband Danjuma came to me. "Inshallah, you will be having a co-wife by Thursday," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Miji, but we haven't talked about this," I replied, swallowing a knot in my throat. "Since when do I need to make decisions as the man of this house with you?" I lowered my eyes, drawing my veil closer to my face. In Islam, a good husband must discuss with his wife if he's going to bring in another wife, but Danjuma loved to prove he was a man who didn't need to discuss anything with a woman as he thought all of us were beneath him. Though he wasn't all bad, this side of him irritated me. I stood at my bedroom window some days later, watching the new bride's procession approach their compound. I shook my head. Danjuma was getting old, he definitely needed the validation of a new wife. My heart was heavy with jealousy and resentment. That's what everyone expected of a first wife. But all that flew away as I caught my first glimpse of Aisha. The younger woman's face was partially veiled, but her eyes, those beautiful eyes, caught my attention immediately. They were sharp, intelligent, with a hint of mischief that seemed at odds with her demure bridal attire. When those eyes met mine across the courtyard, something electric passed between them, and I found myself gripping the windowsill for support. She was light-skinned and slim with a radiant skin. "Allah forgive me," I whispered, though I wasn't quite sure I was asking forgiveness for. Not yet. The first few weeks of our shared marriage were a delicate dance. Danjuma, our husband, was a successful businessman who spent much of his time traveling. He had married Aisha more out of social obligation and desire. At 45, it was expected of a man of his standing to have multiple wives. He was distant, leaving the two women to manage the household together. Aisha turned out to be nothing like what I had expected. She was educated, had studied literature at university, and could discuss poetry for hours. During the long afternoons, when the heat made it impossible to do anything else, we would sit in the courtyard, reading verses to each other in hushed voices. "Listen to this one," Aisha would say, her finger tracing the lines of a Rumi poem. "The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They are in each other all along." Her eyes would lift to meet mine, holding them a moment too long. The first time it happened was during one of these poetry sessions. Aisha had been reading, and a strand of her hair had escaped her hijab. Without thinking, I reached out to tuck it back in place. My fingers brushed against Aisha's cheek, and neither of us had pulled away. Instead, Aisha had turned her face into my palm, pressing a kiss there that burned like a brand. "This is haram," I whispered, even as she leaned closer. "Everything worth having comes with a price," Aisha had responded, before closing the distance between us. The guilt came later, in the dark hours of the night when I laid beside Danjuma. He had never raised his voice to me, had provided well for me, had supported my decision to start a small business selling handmade soaps. When he reached for me in the darkness, I responded as a wife should, but my mind wandered to softer touches, to the taste of forbidden kisses stolen in the afternoon shade. I knew we were walking on dangerous ground, the way our stares lingered, even when she was dressing. I let my eyes rest on her languid and slender body. She took it as the most normal thing in the world. She didn't try to hide anything, and when I was dressing up too, she came to look at me. During the day, we maintained our careful facade. We were model co-wives, sharing household duties amicably, never arguing over Danjuma's attention or resources. The neighbors praised our harmony, not knowing that the real reason for our peace had nothing to do with our husband at all. Months passed this way, our secret love affair hidden behind the high walls of their compound. We found moments whenever we could, a brush of hands while cooking, a stolen kiss in the storage room, long conversations that meant more than their words suggested. But the weight of our deception grew heavier with each passing day. I found myself torn between my duty and my desire. I had known Danjuma for 15 years, had built a life with him, had learned to love him in my own way. But what she felt for Aisha was different. It was fire where my marriage was steady warmth, it was poetry where her marriage was prose. It was Aisha who first spoke the words we had both been thinking. We were lying on the floor of the storage room, the afternoon call to prayer echoing in the distance, when she said, "We could leave." Idiot's heart stopped. Viv. Yes. Aisha propped herself up on one elbow, her eyes intense. We could go to Lagos, or even leave Nigeria entirely. Start fresh somewhere where no one knows us. He would find us, Idiot said, but she didn't move away when Aisha's hand found hers. Not if he couldn't look for us. Aisha's voice was soft but steady. Not if he was gone. The implication hung in the air between them, heavy as the harmattan haze. I should have been horrified, should have pushed Aisha away and run to confess their sins to their husband. Instead, I found myself thinking of the sleeping pills Danjuma took when his business troubles kept him awake. Of how deeply he slept after taking them. Of how easy it would be to just give him a few too many. We would be free, Aisha whispered, her lips against my ear. No more hiding. No more shame. Just us. I thought of the life we could have, a small apartment in a big city, waking up together without fear, being able to love openly. I thought of Danjuma's kindness, of his trust in them both, of the years they had shared. I thought of paradise and hell, of duty and desire, of love in all its complicated forms. Then I thought of Aisha's eyes that first day, of poetry in the afternoon sun, of kisses that tasted like freedom and fear all at once. I thought of living the rest of my life pretending, of watching Aisha share our husband's bed, of dying with the secret burning in my chest. Yes, I said finally, turning to face Aisha in the dim light of the storage room. Yes, we could be free. Aisha's smile was bright enough to illuminate the darkness, and when she kissed me, it tasted like promise and danger in equal measure. We began to plan, carefully and methodically, like women who had learned to be patient in their desires. The next evening, when Danjuma came home from his business trip, I prepared his favorite meal. Aisha served him tea with a smile, and we watched as he took his sleeping pills before retiring to bed. We had already decided it would be tonight. We had bus tickets to Lagos for the morning, new identities arranged through one of Aisha's university connections, a small apartment waiting for us in a neighborhood where nobody asked too many questions. As I watched my husband of 15 years sleep peacefully, I felt tears roll down her cheeks. Aisha's hand found hers in the darkness, warm and steady, a lifetime of possibilities in her touch. "Are you ready?" Aisha whispered. I squeezed her hand in response. I thought of the Rumi poem Aisha had read that first afternoon, "Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They are in each other all along." Perhaps this had always been their destiny, written in the stars long before either of us knew to look for it. In the distance, the muezzin began the call to far prayer, the dawn breaking over Kano as two women slipped away into the morning mist, carrying their sins and their love with them into whatever future Allah had written for them. So, what do you think? Put it in the comments below.